In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this card and how to add depth and dimension to your die cuts with colored pencils. And we'll do a fun watercolor technique with a stencil. Hi, this is Anna of Crafty Anna Studio. Welcome back to my channel where I post paper crafting and card making tutorials. For this project, I'll be using the Hero Arts March 2025 card kit of the month. And this month's theme is all about bows. This month's card kit has two stamp sets. A 6x8 stamp set with lots of sentiments and different images of bows. And it has coordinating dies. There's also a 4x6 stamp set with sentiments and a big bow and coordinating dies. But my absolute favorite is this cover die of a ribbon frame, a bow, and lots of confettis. Then there's also a striped stencil that you can use any which way, and assorted cardstocks from Spellbinders in colors Bellini, Tutu, Orchid, Beeswax, Mint, and Cascade. The kit also comes with two rub-on transfer sheets and pastel pearl embellishments. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this card, but it's actually a 2-for-1 because the leftover of the first card, I was able to make a second card. Now let's make some backgrounds. I took the stencil from the kit, and here I'm just using plain white cardstock. I'm going to adhere the cardstock behind the stencil with washi tape. I will be doing a 2-for-1 technique as well for the background. I take some reactive inks from Hero Arts. This one is taffy. Now I can use a blending brush for this particular part of the technique. The blending motion might make the stencil move around. You could probably do a side-to-side motion to apply ink, but I would use this tool from Picket Fence Studios, which basically pounces the ink onto the stencil. This tool is more like a sponge than it is a brush. If you don't have this tool, you can probably use a beauty sponge. Just ink it up and pounce it on top of the stencil. I continue to do this from top to bottom until the stencil is all inked up. I remove the cardstock from the stencil and will set this aside for now. There's a lot of leftover ink on the stencil and will not let that go to waste, so I will give it a few spritzes of water to activate it. Then I'll take a piece of watercolor cardstock and slowly and gently lay it down onto the stencil to pick up the leftover ink. I'll take a microfiber cloth and I'll gently wipe the back of the cardstock while I hold it down. When I turn it over, you can see that the paper picked up the leftover ink from the stencil and created a cool striped design. There's still some ink left over, so I'll take another piece of watercolor cardstock, lay it down on the stencil as well, rub it gently at the back to pick up the excess ink, then lift it up, turn it over, and you have a more subtle design. Then I'll wipe off the rest of the ink from the stencil. I'll repeat the process one more time, but this time I'm going to ink blend it in the other direction. I'm going to lay down the piece of cardstock onto the stencil, but this time on the horizontal. Then I'll take the pouncing tool and my inks and pounce the ink on top of the stencil. This will create a beautiful grid design. After it's fully inked up, I'll remove the cardstock from the stencil and reveal the grid design. I'll set this aside to use in another project. So once again, I'll spritz the stencil with water Take one of the watercolor panels that I had previously inked up, lay it down onto the stencil, rub gently at the back to pick up the ink. And here I was able to add more to the design. I will spritz it once again with water to activate the ink. Take the other panel, but this time lay it down on the horizontal. Take a microfiber cloth and rub it gently at the back. Lift it up to reveal a grid design. And with this technique, I was able to create 3 background panels. Now it's time to work on the main elements of the card. I have two 4¼ by 5½ cardstock panels in the colors Tutu and Cascade. I will die cut the pink one using the ribbon cover die. I will secure the cover die to the panel with washi tape at the top and at the bottom to prevent it from shifting while die cutting. I will also use the middle part to die cut the ribbon. Next, I will cut the ribbon frame with small sharp-edged scissors. The ribbon frame edge is easy to cut out as it's connected to the main cover frame by tiny tabs. I just snip them off and it detaches easily from the rest of the frame. I go around the frame snipping the tabs until it's fully detached. It's been a while since I did a Hero Arts card kit video, so I hope you will like this one. I try to make these videos not only about creating inspiration for the kits, but also to bring out some ideas for techniques you can use even if you're not a subscriber to the kit. I encourage you to check out my other videos if you're interested in more inspirations. And if you find it worth your while, I would truly appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos. Thanks! Now the ribbon frame is fully detached. Off camera, I die cut 2 more using thick white cardstock, and I already cut out one of the ribbon frames from one of them. As for this one, I will use for the second card, which I will show you later on. And for the others, I will just use that to add dimension to the pink frames. I will use colored pencils to make the ribbons look more realistic. I'll be using Prismacolor pencils in hot pink, processed red, and crimson lake. You can use any brand as long as you have a light, medium, and dark shade closest to the color of your die cuts. You are good to go. But first, I will identify on one of the loops which one overlaps the other. These die cuts have small cuts to indicate this. I'll take the darkest color, in this case it's Crimson Lake, to trace the cut line. Easier now to see how one area of the loop is on top of the other. Next, I will use this to shade in a very small portion just on the inner parts of the loop. Then I'll take the medium color and use that to extend the shading just a little bit more. Then finally the lightest shade to blend it all in. You can see here how the shading makes it look three-dimensional. It creates much needed depth as it loops around. Then I will do the same thing to all the loops. First start with the darkest color, shading in just at the very inner parts. Then I'll switch to the medium color, extend the shading just a little bit, and then blend it all in with the lightest color. We'll set this to music as I color in the rest. Now that I have outlined all the cut lines, I'm going to continue the shading off camera. This is what it looks like with all the shading done. This area is a little bit darker because that is where the ribbon is going to sit. I'm going to shade the bow pretty much the same way I did the ribbon. But I'm going to speed up the video a little and set it to music. After the coloring is done, I'm going to now add dimension to this ribbon. I'm going to start gluing them section by section to make sure that they're all aligned well. After all of that is done, I'm going to set this all aside and start working on heat embossing the sentiment. I'll be using this panel of Cascade cardstock for the matting. Since only the edges will be seen, I'm going to use the middle to heat emboss the sentiment. I already placed the happy birthday to you sentiment onto the door of my Misty. I'm going to place the cardstock right at the very edge. I'm going to use white embossing powder. I'm prepping the cardstock with anti-static powder. Then I'm going to ink up the stamp with embossing ink. Close the door of my Misty. Give it a good press. Then take the embossing powder, sprinkle it generously over the inked sentiment, tap it at the back to remove the excess. Then I'm going to heat set it off camera. Since I'm going to use this to mat my card front, I'm going to use a rectangle die to die cut out the sentiment. Then I'm going to use the coordinating die that came in the kit and die cut the word happy. Then I will use a paper trimmer to cut out the birthday to you part of the sentiment. Then I'll take one of the backgrounds that I created earlier and cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4. Then I will ink up the edges with taffy reactive ink to give it a more finished look. Now that I have all the elements ready, let's put the card together. First, I'm going to add glue to the back of the Cascade cardstock that I had cut out earlier. I'm going to add it to the front of a side folding note card. Next, I'm going to add a piece of cardstock to the middle just to level things out. Then I'm going to add the watercolored background. I remove the release paper of the fold tape that I added to the back, and then I will adhere it on top of the blue cardstock. Next, I will add the ribbon frame. Then the bow's tails, and finally the sentiment, "Happy Birthday to You." And that's the finished card. With the leftover the pink frame, I was able to use it for another card. I adhered it on top of a white die cut frame, as you can see here. Then for the background, I used mint cardstock from the kit, and I stenciled it with Pool Party reactive ink. And I used a light, medium, and dark gray pencil to shade in the ribbon and bow. And the sentiment was white heat embossed on the same pink cardstock. If you're interested in any of the products that I used in this video, I'll have them linked in the video description below. Have a wonderful and crafty day. Till next time, bye!